Wow. I'm looking forward to this all day, and it's just so nice to look out and see all of the faces. And I was so flattered when Ariel said, "Do you want to do this?" And I couldn't. Who would not want to do this? So, what I'm going to do is just teach for a couple minutes, and I hope that what we're going to be studying will inform a little bit of your thinking, or might help you think about the candle lighting that we're going to do together in some way. So in the text I want to share with you is not a typical Hanukkah text. So this is going to come from another place that bringing something into Hanukkah. There's two beautiful books from Israel called Darshanit that are books of beautiful contemporary midrashim that have been written by Israeli women. And I had already fallen in love with these books. And then right now, even more so, it feels so important to me to be listening to the Torah that's coming out of Israel in every way. And so in the second volume, which has not yet been translated, I hope it will be, is a beautiful midrash by a woman named Gubitz. If somebody in this group knows her, I would love to be introduced to her and thank her personally for this midrash. But the name of the midrash is Rebecca's Scarf. And if you remember a few weeks ago when we read about Rebecca, when she's on the camel and she sees Isaac from afar, she falls off the camel and she takes the seif and she covers herself with it. So it's a longer midrash that talks about, well, why was she covering? Nobody told her to do that, and we don't know why. And it really considers all the possible things that she's doing, like, oh, I can't believe it. I'm going to marry him. Or for that guy, I traveled this distance. It's a hilarious and really interesting midrash. But at the very end, the last tag of the midrash is really important because it relates to another famous midrash that we know in Pirkei Avot, where the rabbis are talking about the last few moments between the creating of the world, between Bereshit and the first Shabbat, Bein HaShemashot. I love the sound of that, really conveys this precious, beautiful moments in between one state of being and another. And the few things that God had not, that don't seem to appear in any order of creation, and that the rabbi said, well, they were snuck in and created that moment, like the rainbow, Balaam's donkey, the well, and all these sort of magical, mystical things that later on the rabbis want to account for, but they sort of just shove them into that little spot and saying, well, that must have been when God created those things. So I want us to think about this moment in between, the first thing between one time and the next, because that's where we are right now. We're between a time of darkness and a time when we're going to tiptoe a little bit into bringing light, bringing more light into all the places where it might shine. And so this is the midrash's take by Rivka Lubitch, is the take on that midrash in Pirkei Avot, the things that were created. And she says the following. She said that scarf, that seif, was prepared for Rebecca during the first 6 days of creation. It was made at that time. And they say there were 4 things that were created during those moments, in those last few moments. One of them is the scarf that Rebecca used perhaps to create some sacred space, perhaps for modesty, perhaps she wanted to pray, perhaps she was frightened. We don't really know why she covers her face, but the scarf was one of the coverings. The second thing, the drum of Miriam for singing, for leading the people and rejoicing, for noticing the miracles that have just happened. So that drum was also something that came already from the beginning of creation. The next thing, the tent post of Yael, the Yated, thing she uses to literally whack Sisera in the forehead. So very different from the others. The tent post of Yael. And the fourth is the tears of Rachel, the tears of Rachel for weeping. And of course, being a great midrashic style, they said, well, there's one other thing. There's also that red string that Rachav used to save souls, to save her family, that she put down the side of the house as the Israelites entered Jericho. And then they say the following. Until that time, anyone who wants to access these things, the seif, the drum, the tent post and the weeping and maybe that red string, they are still available to us in each and every generation. So before we light candles, I'd love to just have people put in the chat and say, what do you make of these things? And do they mean something special to you? Or how might this midrash be saying something about these significant moments, liminal moments in the lives of women or the lives of all people? So it's kind of a lot of questions, but what might those things mean? You could pick one and say, oh, I think this represents this and that, and maybe we can put those things in the chat. No, I don't see the chat box on my screen, so hold on. There it is. Hi. Rahab, yes, Rahab. In the story of Joshua is the Canaanite woman who allows the spies into the city and tells the spies that the people in Jericho are frightened of the Israelites, and she believes in God. And according to tradition, Rahab becomes the wife of Joshua. So different facets of us, celebrating, singing, fighting, and resilience, beautiful. Makes modern Rachel from Ofakim, who saved herself and her husband. Yes, with cake and coffee. Yes. Different. So, anybody else? Guess what? There's not a right answer. There's not a right answer. Okay. These are external tools that we acquire. They're not organic. All right. So if you can keep posting things in the chat, and I hope that you have something to think about. It's just in this moment, the creation in a moment in between two moments, the things that we most need may be available for us. And so I hope that will help you as well. I'm going to light the candles. I had a long debate about which way I should turn it, this is for me, but this would be for you. But I'm going to leave it like this so I don't create a fire. I also, to remember for the rest of the week, I also picked the first night, so I wouldn't make any mistakes about how to put the candles in. You put them in the way you read Hebrew. You light them the way you read English. Isn't that simple? So now you've got it. Hebrew, English. So now we're going to do this together. Everybody ready to light? Well, I'm going to create a fire that I don't want to create. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav, v'tzivanu lehadlik ner shel Chanukah. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, she'asa nisim lavoteinu, bayamim hahem, b'hazman hazeh. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, she'hechianu, v'kiyamanu, v'higianu lahazman hazeh. Ma'osu Yeshuati, L'chana l'shabeach, Tikon betefilati, V'sham toda nizabeach, Li'etachin matbeach, Mitzaham nabeach, Hazegmor b'shir mizmor, Chanukah tamizbeach, Hazegmor b'shir mizmor, Chanukah tamizbeach. Do we have time to do it in English? Rock of ages, let our song praise thy saving power. Thou amidst the raging foes was our sheltering tower. Furious they assailed us, but thine arm availed us, and thy word broke their sword when our own strength failed us, and thy word broke their sword when our own strength failed us. And yes, so happy and feeling so blessed to be here. I wish you all the happiest of Hanukkahs. I hope you're here tomorrow at 4:00 for Rabbi Lauren Tuchman. If you've never heard her teach, you're missing a treat.